I've always been a bit of a dreamer and have enjoyed living a good chunk of my life in my own imagination. And so when I saw this piece, I just found that my imagination came alive. And I was internally transported into this serene place that I wanted to be able to revisit again and again. And that is why I knew I had to have it in my home. We are redoing and renovating our house piece by piece, and my partner and I went back and forth because he's a much more practical person where he's like, we need to put new baseboards in. That's where our money should go. And I'm like, but art. But we need beauty in our lives. And so when I found Lars's work, I knew that as functional and practical as some of our upcoming costs were, that this had to be right now. That this was a cost that I couldn't wait on because I knew that it was going to dramatically impact the feeling of the house, right? And so, for me, when I come home, it's so important, that's the environment that I get to relax in, that I unfurl in. I have a nephew who recently came over for dinner, and he's 13 years old, right? So he's a kid. He's not interested in art. He's interested in basketball. And he walks into the living room, and he hadn't been here since this piece was put up. And he literally was like, whoa, like, your house is so nice. Like, this is so cool. So yeah, I found that ever since we hung this piece up, it really has had, it's just completely reset the tone of the house. So I had never had, really committed to purchasing a piece of art. And my partner and I, purchased this house in 2019. We intend on staying. And so, when I saw this piece of art, something was very different for me because up until seeing Lars's photography, I had never seen a piece of art that I knew I would want to look at again and again. And so often with art, I find that it doesn't take me somewhere else, and that is something that I didn't realize that I look for in art. As a first-time art purchaser, I didn't know what to expect in terms of, gosh, what size? Do I put matte and frame on it? Do I have a floating piece like what you see? And as you can see, I chose a floating piece for this wall. Our house is somewhat modest and minimalist in nature, and so ultimately my partner and I determined that a floating piece would probably fit the feel of the house most appropriately. That said, I was delightfully surprised by how fluid the process really was, considering that mild intimidation that I felt about it. Because I wasn't sure of the size that I wanted for the wall space that I intended to place this piece on, he came over and basically helped me visualize using his digital technology what size would look most appropriate. And we went through multiple sizes, and ultimately my partner and I determined that this custom size was the most appropriate and impactful for the space.